In 1948, a 16-year-old boy bought a '43 Harley-Davidson, unknowingly setting in motion a chain of events that would reshape motorcycle culture across the globe. That teenager was Otto Friedli, who would go on to help establish what became a brotherhood spanning 63 countries, with over 2,500 members worldwide and more than 275 chapters in Europe alone.
Today, there's more than 275 charters in Europe alone.
But statistics tell only half the story. How does a man go from founding one of the world's most notorious motorcycle clubs to spending his final decades saving souls?
There was absolutely only one Otto Friedli, but he lived two separate lives. The first as a founder of the Hells Angels. The second, after a sudden religious conversion, made him put the pieces of his life into perspective.
What transforms a leader who faced prison time for firearms and drug charges into a devoted minister who would drive across America to sit beside sick former brothers, working tirelessly to change their lives?
He was a member and chapter president of the Hells Angels in the 1960s. Otto became a born-again Christian in the 1960s and continued to live his life for God, which is how he would want to be remembered. His commitment and love for God and his family were the most important part of his life.
From the streets of Madison, Wisconsin, to the cells of California's prisons, from the legendary Hollister riot of '47 to a quiet church in Santa Barbara, Otto Friedli's 76-year journey reads like a Hollywood script. Only this story, which culminates in 30 years of marriage and a legacy that touched countless lives, is anything but fiction.
He remembered the time that he was almost ready to go off of a cliff, and his motorcycle spun 180 degrees and stopped right at the edge of that cliff. Suddenly he felt like there were no coincidences, that he was in the presence of something larger than himself, something sacred. That's when he changed.
This is the tale of a man who lived two lives, first raising hell, then raising hopes. The year was 1931. A summer breeze swept through Madison, Wisconsin, carrying the first cries of a baby who would one day reshape motorcycle culture in America. Otto Friedli entered this world on June 28th, destined for a life that would become the stuff of legends and whispered stories around late-night campfires.
Otto Friedli, born June 28, 1931 in Madison, Wisconsin.
Los Angeles called early. His family packed up and moved west, drawn by the promise of opportunity and endless horizons that California offered in those days. Young Otto found himself surrounded by the raw energy of a city that was redefining itself, breathing in the spirit of rebellion that would later define his life. Motorcycles grabbed him at 16. That first '43 Harley wasn't just transportation. It was a freedom incarnate, a mechanical beast that opened doors to a world most folks only dreamed about.
At 16 years of age, Otto purchased his first motorcycle, a 1943 Harley. It ignited his passion for riding.
The Army seemed like a natural next step for a kid with mechanical skills and a restless spirit. But military life had other plans for our boy Otto. Authority never sat well with him. The structured environment of military service clashed with his independent nature, leading to a series of run-ins that would eventually earn him a discharge. But sometimes, what looks like failure is just life's way of pointing you toward your true calling. The late 1940s brought him to the pissed-off bastards of Bloomington Motorcycle Club. These weren't your Sunday riding enthusiasts. The club was home to men who lived on their own terms, creating their own rules in a world that seemed determined to box them in.
And I went over to the Hells Angels website, and boy, do they spell it out, man. They dispel all the innuendos that their club came from this bomber group, even though I believe they used a lot of the colors within these deals. And it was even more interesting that the one that they actually called the founding president and stuff like that, came over from the pissed off bastards of Bloomington.
Otto found his tribe among these rebels, these freedom-seeking souls who understood that life's greatest thrills often came with a side of danger. Then came Hollister in '47. The air was thick with tension and the scent of burning rubber. Bikers and law enforcement faced off in what would become known as the Hollister Riot, a pivotal moment that would forever change how America viewed motorcycle culture. Otto wasn't just present. He was living history, breathing in every moment of a weekend that would inspire countless stories, including the wild one. California's motorcycle scene was exploding. Nearly 200 clubs dotted the landscape, each with its own identity and territory. But something bigger was brewing, something that would transcend ordinary club boundaries and become a global phenomenon. Otto stood at the crossroads of this transformation, though he might not have known it at the time. Those early days shaped him. Every mile on the road, every confrontation with authority, every moment of brotherhood among his fellow riders. It was all preparation for what would come next. The stage was set for something bigger than anyone could have imagined, and Otto Friedli was about to play a leading role in a story that would span decades and continents. Hey brothers, tired of YouTube's BS and censorship? It's time to break free. That's why I've shifted gears to Patreon, where I can bring you the raw, uncensored content you crave. Join my Patreon crew and get an insane package deal. Exclusive early access to all videos, days before YouTube, 100% ad-free viewing experience. Uncensored, no-holds-barred community discussions, double the content. 2 killer videos every single week. VIP access, direct interaction with yours truly, inside scoop, exclusive biker world updates you won't find anywhere else. Ready to join the elite? Hit that Patreon link now. Your support doesn't just keep us rolling, it fuels a revolution of uncensored, unrestricted content. Join now and unlock a world of exclusive benefits. March 1948 dawned cold and clear. Something electric was in the air. A feeling of destiny that would culminate in the birth of the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club. Otto, interestingly enough, often denied being its founder. But history has a way of remembering things differently than the men who lived them. The name came from the World War II fighters. These flyboys called themselves the Hells Angels, painting the skies with their daring exploits during the war.
You know, there's a lot of newspapers and so-called biographers that try to pin the Hells Angels with a World War II bomber group. So to answer the questions, the lineage between the HAMC and military organization is that Arvid Olsen Flying Tigers Hells Angels Squadron gave the ideal of the name to the actual founder of the Hells Angels in Fontana. The selection of our colors, red on white, is a result of association of Olsen with HAMC founders, like the insignia, the 3P, Hells Angels, and all that good stuff.
It was a name that carried weight, a name that demanded respect and promised adventure to those bold enough to claim it. The San Bernardino chapter became Otto's home.
Again, March 17th, St. Paddy's Day, the first Hells Angels Motorcycle Club was founded in Fontana / San Bernardino area in the United States. About the same time, other clubs were formed in various places in the state of California, but none of these clubs were associated with Hells Angels nor with each other. Most of them do not exist today, but the Purdue charter, San Bernardino, still do.
Rising through the ranks wasn't just about being tough, though you had to be that too. It was about leadership, about understanding men's hearts, and knowing when to pull tight on the reins and when to let them run free. They weren't just any motorcycle club anymore. They were becoming an institution, a brotherhood, that would eventually boast over 100 chapters in 63 countries.
Anyway, During the 50s, more Hells Angels charters came into existence. In the beginning, the different charters had nothing to do with each other. But after some years, they united. A regular criteria of a mission was laid down from having been exclusively a California phenomenon.
But success breeds enemies. Other clubs emerged as rivals, the outlaws, the pagans, each wanting their piece of the territory, their share of the respect. Conflicts erupted, turning the open road into contested ground where brotherhood was tested and loyalty meant everything. The late 60s brought changes nobody could have predicted. Law enforcement started paying closer attention to motorcycle clubs nationwide, and the pressure was building. Otto found himself in their crosshairs, facing charges that would change the course of his life forever. Leadership had its price. The responsibilities weighed heavy, and the choices Otto made during these years would echo through decades to come. But that's the thing about being at the top. Every decision carries weight. Every move affects not just you, but everyone who rides under your colors. Those years shaped not just Otto, but the entire culture of American motorcycling. The freedom of the open road came with a cost, and Otto was about to learn just how high that price could be. But even as the storm clouds gathered, nobody could have predicted the remarkable turn his life was about to take. By 1961, fate and tragedy would conspire to put Otto at the helm, following Bobby Zimmerman's fatal motorcycle accident. Those were wild times, brother. Under Otto's leadership, the Angels expanded like wildfire, spreading across state lines and eventually national borders. The numbers tell a story of explosive growth. The Hells Angels were no longer just a California phenomenon. They were becoming a global force. Documentation from that era shows the club's rapid expansion. Over 2,500 members worldwide, spreading across continents like wildfire. Otto's leadership style, forged in the crucible of those early days, helped shape this growth.
The club developed internationally in 1961. The Hells Angels went international in 1961. It happened when the first charter outside California was adopted, strangely enough, as far away as Auckland, New Zealand. Wow, man, New Zealand, 1961. Then the Hells Angels spread out to the East Coast in the 60s and later to the Midwest. July the 30th, and these are some dates that you might want to get down. 1969. The first European Hells Angel charter was accepted in London, England.
His reputation for being a straight shooter, where yes means yes and no meant no, became legendary among members.
Otto's testimony to me was very precious because I knew the man, he was true, and his yes was yes and his no was no.
But paradise had its price. The late 1960s brought increased scrutiny from law enforcement. Rival clubs were pushing boundaries, testing territories. The freedom of the open road was becoming more complicated with each passing mile. Then came 1968. The ranch raid changed everything. Law enforcement had been watching, waiting, building their case. Otto faced charges for firearms possession and maintaining an unlawful place for marijuana use. The president's patch couldn't protect him from what came next. 3 years behind bars loomed ahead.
We got drunk, we got loaded, we went to jail, we rode our motorcycles, we disobeyed the law, we stole some things.
But prison wasn't just about doing time. It was about reflection. For a man who'd always been about numbers, whether in gambling or leading one of the world's largest motorcycle clubs, the mathematics of life were about to take on a whole new meaning. The club was changing too. By 1972, Sonny Barger had taken control, steering the organization in new directions. The old ways were giving way to new realities, and the simple freedom of the road was becoming entangled with more complex enterprises. Prison changes a man. For Otto, Those concrete walls became the unlikely sanctuary where his life took its most dramatic turn. A numbers man at heart. Something about the Six-Day War in 1967 caught his attention while he was inside. How could a handful of Jews defeat 5 nations?
And that reminded me of how the things happened. Did anybody remember 1967? A little bit? You remember when the Jewish people beat them 5 nations in what, 5-day war? 6-day war, 6-day. Otto was in jail at that time, and being a gambler, he was a numbers man. He said, how can a handful of Jews beat 5 nations? He said there must be numerical gambling, whatever it is. And that's what he told me.
The question nagged at him. Otto, ever the gambler, couldn't make the odds work in his head. This mathematical impossibility led him to pick up a Bible, not for salvation, but for answers. That first year of reading yielded nothing. Frustrated, he tossed the book aside.
So he picked up the book and he read it for a year. And he said, oh, I didn't get nothing out of this. Threw it in the trash can.
But something called him back.
It bothered him because he knew that when he read it, he remembered, he said, before you read God's word, you pray and ask the Holy Spirit to open your eyes to not only the letter, but the spirit of the book. Not just a bunch of words.
In a prison janitor's closet, surrounded by mops and buckets, Otto Friedli, the notorious Hells Angels president, got down on his knees and prayed.
So he got the Bible back and he said, well, where am I going to pray in prison, being the president of the Hells Angels, in front of all these people? He was a little embarrassed to admit that he was searching. So he got in the closet where they keep the mops and the buckets, and he got on his knees. Quiet time.
What happened next transformed him completely. The man who emerged from that closet wasn't just reformed, he was reborn. Fellow inmates saw the change. The guards saw it.
The Spirit of God came on him. And that's how I met him at the front door. He was lit up like he was drunk, loaded, high, blitzed, slammed, you name it. It was just natural. The Holy Spirit came on him, and that's the way he came out. This is what I saw. This guy. This is later. I'm serious. And this guy he's lit up. You could look at this picture.
And when he walked out of prison in 1971, everyone who knew him could see it. Santa Barbara became his new home. Trading his old colors for a different patch, Otto joined the Black Sheep for Christ Motorcycle Ministry. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The former Hells Angels founder now rode for a higher purpose. His new mission was personal.
When we first moved to Santa Barbara and started the church, Otto was one of the founding members and helped us get started.
Otto, after he came to the Lord, he was like a completely different person. And he wanted to do things that were right and good, and he wanted all the people that he knew in the Hells Angels to come to the Lord.
Otto spent years traveling across America, seeking out old club members, not to settle scores, but to save souls. When brothers got sick or injured, Otto would ride out, staying as long as it took, working tirelessly to share his newfound faith.
So he drove his motorcycle, and I've told you part of this, all over the United States, wherever they were, especially if one of them would get sick or get injured or something. He would go there and stay as long as he could and work as hard as he could to get them to give their lives over to the Lord, because he really felt bad that he had messed up like he did.
The transformation was complete.
He loved to make people smile and laugh and enjoy life, especially after he was saved. A radiant heart, a lion's might, the grace of an eagle's flight, such was the spiritual force of Otto Friedli.
Working at a local Harley dealership, He shared his mechanical wisdom with younger riders. Later, he moved into swimming pool construction, building a new life one pool at a time. He retired at 72, but his ministry never stopped.
For 30 years, Otto worked building swimming pools and retired at the age of 72.
March 17, 2008 marked his last morning. After 76 years of life, half spent raising hell, half spent raising hopes, Otto Friedli took his final ride.
Went home to be with Jesus Monday, March 17, 2008.
It didn't register so much until just before he died. While he was sick, I realized that a lot of what he did after he became a Christian was because he felt guilty.
His memorial service in Santa Barbara drew an unlikely mix. Retired bikers, church members, pool contractors, and saved souls.
Otto was survived by his loving wife of 30 years, sons, daughters, his sister, 2 brothers, and grandchildren, numerous nieces and nephews, and his many spiritual family members.
His legacy lives on in numbers. 30 years of marriage to his wife, Carol. Multiple children and grandchildren. Countless lives touched through his ministry. The Hells Angels he helped found now spans over 63 countries, while his testimony of transformation continues to inspire.
The stuff he went through in the Hells Angels, and when he came to know it was wrong, gave him such an incentive to do what was right, to help people, and that's what made him the man he was.
Somewhere out there, Otto's probably still riding, still grinning that famous Swiss twist smile, still changing lives one soul at a time.